underneath the battery cover here, we have the battery for both devices. The LG Phoenix has a 1500 milliamp hour battery, and the crossover also has a 1500 milliamp hour battery. And also underneath the battery cover for each phone is the micro SD card slot. So you can see the way it's situated, you don't have to take out the battery on the LG Phoenix in order to get to the card, but with the crossover you do. So, that's kind of a bummer. In terms of battery life, they were both pretty decent. The crossover, when I first started testing it out, battery life was inconsistent, but once I charged it a couple of times and then actually used it in the real world, standby time was great. It lasted about 2 days on standby, and then once I started using it, it definitely dropped a lot more. I think with normal use in my testing, you'd probably be fortunate to get a full day out of it. And as you can see, I have a couple of widgets running, and I have notifications running in the background. I have this clock, weather, and calendar widget. So I have a couple things running in the background, but I don't think it would take you through a full day. Whereas for some reason on standby, it's like got this Hercules battery that can last 2 to 3 days on standby. So that I'm not really sure about. Battery management is not very good on the crossover. Whereas with the LG Phoenix, I easily got through a full day. With normal use, having more widgets running, I've kind of changed it a little bit since then, but with widgets running in the background and the usual notifications, I could easily make it through a full day with the Phoenix. And if you don't use a crossover heavily, then it may get you through a full day, but just in my testing, the Phoenix definitely had much better battery life. Now, I showed you the micro SD card slot, but I didn't go into a lot of detail on memory. They both ship with a 2 GB card, and then they support up to 32 gigs. So memory is about the same because, they both ship with same size card, and then you can maximize it up to 32 gigs. Now, in terms of processor speed, they're both mid-range devices, and they ship with a 600 megahertz processor. Both of them have that same 600 megahertz processor, and I found that performance was pretty decent. I had fewer problems with the LG Phoenix than I did with the crossover. I noticed the crossover was just sometimes unresponsive, and I don't know if it was the display, the touchscreen that was just unresponsive, or if it was just the processor in general. I would load an app and then I would go back to the home screen and it would freeze or it wouldn't load, so just a little more lag. Overall it wasn't too bad, but I did notice it enough to where it got frustrating. Whereas with the Phoenix, little to no lag, and all of these Optimus One phones by LG, they've all performed very well. The Phoenix, even though processor may seem like 600 megahertz, that's basically the same. It just, in my testing, the Phoenix was smoother. There was less lag. It was more responsive. So I'm gonna have to give that to the Phoenix. Okay, so let's take a look at the keyboards for both of these phones. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Pantech crossover ships with a physical keyboard. So we'll go to the messaging interface, we'll take a look at the keyboard, and then the LG Phoenix, it ships with a stock Android keyboard as well as LG's custom keyboard. Now, comparing keyboard to keyboard, which one is better, a lot of it just depends on what you prefer. I mean, some people like having a physical keyboard, and for some people it doesn't bother them. Now, if you don't need a physical keyboard, I would definitely recommend going with a Phoenix, because not only are you carrying around just extra weight in general, but especially with the crossover, it's extremely thick and bulky and heavy. So especially so with a crossover, if you don't typically use a physical keyboard, definitely go with a crossover. But we'll take a look at the crossover's keyboard, or definitely go with the Phoenix. I'm sorry, I misspoke. But we'll take a look at the crossover physical keyboard. You can see it has island style keys, and they're pretty flat, as you can see, not raised a whole lot there, but they have this nice grippy rubbery texture, very well designed. In my testing, it was a great keyboard. I didn't have a whole lot of problems with it. So let me type out our typical usual boring sentence. Easy dog. The the quick. But overall, a pretty good keyboard and a great physical keyboard. I always like it when the space bar is in its own row and not scrunched in a row of letters. You are sacrificing a dedicated number row, but I don't know very many people that use that anyway. And then, you know, these arrows kind of mean that the keyboard has to be shifted over a little bit, at least the bottom row. But, you know, in my testing, I didn't really notice that to be a big problem. So the physical keyboard on the crossover is great, definitely a great keyboard. So if you need a physical keyboard, go with the crossover because it is a reliable keyboard. Now, the touchscreen on the Phoenix is decent, so I'm not going to knock this one either. If you don't need a physical keyboard, then you'll definitely be very satisfied with this one. Let me type out the same sentence. Jumps over the lazy dog. So you can see I made a bunch more arrows there. I personally, I prefer a physical keyboard. I just feel safer with it, you know, knowing that I'm actually pressing physical keys. So I typically do better with a physical keyboard, but that's going to vary person to person. So, but you know, the Android keyboard is a great keyboard, definitely one of the best. Having a smaller display, that may be a problem for people that have larger hands, but of course you can use it in landscape mode and be a little bit larger there. So, you know, comparing keyboards, I can't really give one a winner because a lot of it just depends, like I said, on what you like. I mean, some people need a physical keyboard or prefer a physical keyboard, so, you know, then the crossover would be the best choice. Okay, so that's pretty much it, guys. It's the LG Phoenix and the crossover. I'm going to say the biggest difference between these two phones, the things that you should really focus on if you're trying to decide which one to get, would be the custom UI and then the physical keyboard. After testing out both of these phones and using them extensively, I'm going to say that the Phoenix is the better phone. I think it was smoother, there was less lag, the screen was more responsive. I had problems with the responsiveness of the touchscreen on the crossover. I didn't have those problems with the Phoenix. Now, if you need a physical keyboard, I think that would probably be the only draw to getting the crossover because it does have a keyboard. But other than that, I think the Phoenix is the better phone, you know, for the reasons I discussed in the video. So there they are, Phoenix crossover. The Phoenix is $29.99, so about $30 on contract. The crossover is $69.99, so about $70 on contract. And you know, you're getting a little bit more with the keyboard and the sporty design, but still, I think, you know, the Phoenix has a better price and it's just the better phone in my experience. So there they are, Phoenix crossover. Those are my thoughts on you know, which one is better. And thank you so much, guys, for watching. Be sure and keep it on PhoneDoc.com for more news, updates, and reviews. If you have any questions about this Dogfight or any other reviews that I've done, you can send me a message on Twitter. My screen name is It's My Job to Know. So you can ask me a question. I'll try to answer it as soon as I can. And then also PhoneDoc.com for more news. And I'll have other reviews. Aaron always has tons of awesome reviews for you guys. So keep it on PhoneDoc.com. But thanks, guys, for watching this video. I'm Sydney, and I'll see you guys later.